Hello everybody, welcome back to Motion Recap. Today we're about to feature another movie for you. It's an adventure action film called Gods of Egypt. But there's spoilers ahead, so if I were you, I'd proceed with care. But before we start, feel free to subscribe to our channel and also like this video. And make sure to be with us until the end of the video to find out how spectacular the story unravels. It would definitely help our community grow and will help us to strive for the highest quality content. So without further ado, why don't we start? We meet a mortal protagonist named Beck. He's walking through the busy streets of Egypt. He sees a beautiful dress and he decides to snatch it. He runs away and he brings the dress to his lover Zaya. They run away together and now they're trying to live a happy life in unity. And then we meet Horus, a god of air and skies. It's his crowning day and he will become the king of Egypt. Horus wakes up with a hangover because there was a gigantic party last night. He goes to a pool to watch when his enigmatic lover Hathor shows up and they get intimate. The crowning ceremony begins and people gather to see everything. Beck and Zaya are there too, and Beck shows his thief skill once again by stealing a ring from a rich man. The announcer presents gods that came as guests, and Horus's father Osiris gives a speech to the people. He tells them that everyone will be equal in death and every good man will go to the afterlife no matter his financial state. People are cheering. Osiris gets ready to crown Horus, but out of nowhere, his brother Set shows up. Set is a god of the desert and violence. Everyone is confused because he's like an outcast in the family, but for some reason he came. Gives a hunting horn as a gift to Horus, and when Horus tries it, Set's army comes marching in. Set kills Osiris and he starts to fight with Horus. Soon they transform into their beast forms and the fight continues. Horus manages to give a nice amount of good hits to his uncle. However, the situation turns when Set's soldiers use their shields to reflect the sun at Horus. Set's overpower him and he takes his eyes out. Gets ready to kill Horus, but Hathor interferes and Set spares his life. And then he announces that he's a king and that weak people will be forced into slavery. Also from now on, people will buy their rights for the afterlife with gold. Beck and Zaya get separated in the chaos. After some time, we learn that Beck is forced into slavery and that Zaya is a slave to an evil architect named Urshu. Beck sneaks into a palace where Zaya is serving and he tells her that he has a plan. He wants to seal the eyes of Horus and he will bring them to him so he can save the people. Zaya gives him a plan of an underground treasure keep which is filled with traps, and Beck takes a plan of Set's furnace. The furnace is the source of Set's powers. That night, Beck manages to sneak into the treasure keep. He uses his brain to plan the keep to pass every deadly trap. Then he finds out that there is only one eye of Horus. He takes it and then he goes back to visit Zaya. In shock, Horus makes an ambush and his men surround Beck and Zaya. Beck then uses his brain and he pulls the eye of Horus. Horseshoe and his men get blinded by the light, and Beck uses the chance to hop on carriages with Zaya. They're escaping with great speed, but Zaya suddenly falls, and Beck sees an arrow in the heart. Horseshoe shot her. Beck escapes. And he goes to the temple of Anubis to find Horus. Set banished him there. Horus is blind as a bat. Beck tells him that he has his eye, and Horus tells him to give it to him. Beck refuses because he wants something in return, and then Horus attacks him. Beck evades a lot of Horus's attacks and he tells him that he wants Horus to revive his lover. Horus calms down, and when Beck brings Zaya, he tries his best to revive her, but she's gone. Horus calls Anubis the god of the underworld and Anubis takes Zaya's soul. Beck tells Horus that she will never pass the ninth gate to the afterlife because she's poor. Horus tells him that if they kill Set before Zaya reaches the ninth gate, that way he will manage to revive her. Beck gives Horus his eye and they place Zaya's body into a sarcophagus. Urshu and the best warrior inform Set that the treasure keep is breached, and they go to the temple of Anubis. There they find Zaya's body, and Set gives an order to his beast warrior to hunt Horus and Beck down. Horus takes Beck on a mountain where his weird statue is located. There, Horus prays to Amon-Ra, the god of all creation. Ra hears his prayers, and he grants him a beast to visit him. Horus takes Beck to the ark in which Ra circles around to carry the sun. Horus fills his flask with cosmic water, and he asks Ra for advice. Ra tells him that his journey has only begun, and to beat Set, he needs to get stronger. At the time, Set is with his army in the desert. Some gods didn't want to accept his rule, and he came to kill them. He manages to do that, and he goes to visit his ex-wife, goddess Nephthys. She tries to escape, but Set rips her wings out. Horus and Beck are back on Earth. Ra took his beast form away after granting him at first. They go to the nearest waterfall, and they are jumped by Set's beast warriors. Horus puts up a fight with a spear, and he starts taking them off one by one. He kills everybody besides the beast that is in charge. The beast holds Beck and he lets him down the waterfall. Horus kills him and he finds Beck alive on a stone. However, before he manages to help him, it turns out that the beast is alive and it hunts Horus with a boulder. He falls and Beck goes after him. He manages to wake Horus and Horus uses his spear to stop them from falling. They get to the shore and Horus sees the beast is alive. The beast runs away to inform Set about the encounter with Horus, and Set kills him in anger. Later, he finds out that Athers is watching Horus with her powers. Set figures that she's in love with Horus. Before he manages to kill her, she escapes using her bracelet that keeps her from the claws of the dead. Horus and Beck are sitting out at Osiris' old temple. Horus tells Beck that his father gave his time to people to use as burial ground. Horus then tells him that Set butchered Osiris in 14 pieces, and then he hid them away. Horus managed to find everything besides his heart. His mother killed herself because of his father's destiny. Rock then sees a cloud of dust on the horizon, and he thinks it's a sandstorm. But to his surprise, he sees 2 giant snakes approaching, and Set's huntresses are riding them. A duo starts to run, but huntresses quickly catch up to them. They hide in a hole, and Beck proposes an idea where he will be the bait, and with their luck, they manage to trick the snake. Horus sticks his spear in its mouth, and he traps her. However, another one is left, and Horus tells Beck to repeat the bait trick so he can attack her from behind on her weak spots. Horus climbs on its back, and he fights the huntress. He ties her to the snake, and she falls off the cliff. The temple rumbles, but the duo manages to get out. There, they see another problem. The other huntress managed to free her snake, and they're going towards Horus and Beck. Out of nowhere, Hathor shows up, and she calms the snake down. She takes the spear of Horus, and she orders her to burn itself. Snakes do as Hathor told her, and she burns herself and the huntress. They escape through an underground tunnel. Horus tells Hathor about his and Beck's plan. Hathor asks them how they will pass the Sphinx that's guarding Set's furnace. Horus knows that they will need to solve a riddle to pass the Sphinx, and he tells her that they will ask Thoth, the god of wisdom, for help. They're walking through a swamp, and Hathor asks Beck why he's helping Horus. Beck tells her that Horus will bring his lover back from the dead when he gets the other eye. Hathor's face fills with confusion when she hears that. Soon they arrive at Thoth's home, and they manage to get him to help with the Sphinx. They head to the Set's furnace, and on their way, Hathor and Horus have a conflict. She's angry at him because of his false promise that he will bring Zaya back. Hathor then goes to Beck, and she uses her powers to communicate with Zaya. He tells her that Horus will revive her and everything will be okay. They get to the Set's furnace, and there are hundreds of doors. However, by lucky guess, Beck picks the right one and he gets inside. He turns off a defensive mechanism and gods enter. Soon they stumble upon Sphinx, who gives them a riddle. Thoth pridefully steps forward to solve the riddle, but he answers. Sphinx attacks them, and Thoth manages to get the right answer after 2 more guesses. Sphinx turns into dust, and they approach the heart of the furnace. Suddenly, a trap comes out of the ground, and it traps Aur and Hathor. Set shows up, and he takes Thoth's brain out. Horus tells Beck to pour cosmic water into the furnace, but Set tells Beck about Horus's lies and that he can't bring Zaya back. Beck is disappointed, and Set uses that chance to take water from him. He spills them, and he leaves them to be crushed. However, they manage to escape at the last second. Hathor then calls Anubis, and she gives her bracelet to Beck so that he can give it to Zaya. Demons attack Hathor away, and Anubis takes Beck to the underworld to give the bracelet to Zaya. At the time, Set places Horus's eye, Thoth's brain, and Nephthys' wing on himself, and then he goes to visit Ra. They argue, and Ra tells him that he can still stop everything. However, Set kills him, and he takes his staff away. Without Ra, a force of darkness known as Apophis is now free. It enters the world of the dead, and Anubis gives his best to hold him. He tells Beck to inform Horus that he needs to do something quickly about this, and then he sends Beck back. Beck tells Horus everything, and they are thinking about how to stop Set. On their luck, a flying carriage of Nephthys shows up. They take them to the city, where Set channels energy from Ra's staff to lure Apophis. Horus and Beck kidnap Urshu to take them to the Set's obelisk. Horus gets out of the elevator to get to the Set, and Beck continues to climb with Urshu because he wants to steal Horus's eye from Set. Urshu attacks Beck, and they fight. However, Beck overpowers him, and Urshu falls to his death. Horus and Set start their final fight. Set is stronger because of the godly artifacts. Soon, Horus is on the ground, and Set is ready to stab him, but Beck takes his staff with a hook. Set hurls it back, who manages to take Horus's eye back. He throws the eye to Horus, and Set throws back. Horus needs to choose between his friend or his eye. He chooses Beck, and he saves him. Horus is holding himself and Beck by the edge of the obelisk, but soon he lets go. They're falling in their death, but suddenly, Horus gets his powers back, and he saves Beck. He goes back to face Set, and after an intense fight, he kills him, and the obelisk crumbles down. Horus then revives Ra, who stops Apophis from destroying a whole world. Horus gets back to the city, where everyone is cheering. A little girl approaches him, and she gives him his other eye back. He then finds Beck. They talk a little, but to Horus's shock, Beck dies. He carries his body and places it next to Zea's. Out of nowhere, Ra shows up and he tells Horus that he will rape him by giving him the water he wants. Horus then chooses to revive Beck and Zea. The lovers are finally reunited. The movie ends with Horus getting crowned and becoming the king. Beck becomes his advisor, the other gods are revived too, and everyone is there except Hathor. Beck returns Hathor's bracelet, and Horus goes on the adventure to save her and bring her back. And that concludes our video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Also, don't forget to hit that like button and hit that bell icon so you'll be notified if we have a new story for you. After this video, why don't you check out these videos we've attached for you. See you next time.